August 9th, 1969, a quiet neighborhood in Los Angeles. The sun had yet to rise when a housekeeper arrived for work at 10:50 Cielo Drive. But something was wrong. As she stepped onto the property, she saw something horrifying. A bloodied body sprawled on the front lawn. Panic set in. Inside the house, more bodies. A gruesome scene unlike anything the city had ever witnessed. Hollywood's golden age had turned red with blood, and this was only the beginning. A day later, another home was invaded. Another set of brutal murders. The victims? Innocent people who had never met their killers. Their crime? Being chosen by a man who believed he was a prophet. A man who convinced his followers to kill for him. This is the story of Charles Manson and the cult that carried out one of the most shocking crime sprees in American history. What drove them to murder? And how did one man gain so much control over others? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will shock you. To understand the horror of the Manson family murders, we have to go back to the early life of the man who started it all. Charles Manson was born on November 12th, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. From the very beginning, his life was troubled. His mother, Kathleen Maddox, was only 16 when she had him. She was a runaway, a rebel, and often in trouble with the law. When Charles was still a baby, she was arrested for robbing a man at a gas station. She was sent to prison, and Charles was left to be raised by relatives who barely wanted him. He never knew stability. By the age of 9, he had already committed his first crime, stealing. By 13, he was sent to a juvenile detention center for car theft. But Manson wasn't just another troubled kid. He had a talent for manipulation. He could read people, understand their weaknesses, and use them to his advantage. Over the next 2 decades, Manson would be in and out of prison, spending more than half his life behind bars. But instead of reforming, he was learning how to control people, how to make them believe in him. Then came the 1960s. It was the perfect time for a man like Charles Manson to thrive. The world was changing. The Vietnam War had led to protests. The civil rights movement was in full swing. Young people were rejecting authority, seeking meaning in new places. Free love, psychedelic drugs, and spiritual enlightenment became the new way of life. Manson saw an opportunity, and he took it. By the mid-1960s, Manson had moved to California. He had a dream to become a famous musician. He played guitar, wrote songs, and talked his way into Hollywood parties. He even had a brief connection to the Beach Boys. But his dreams of fame never materialized. That's when he changed course. If he couldn't control the music industry, he would control something else. People. Manson began gathering a group of followers, young men and women, mostly in their late teens and early 20s. Many were runaways. Others, they settled at Spahn Ranch, an abandoned movie set outside Los Angeles. It became their home, their sanctuary, and their prison. Here, Manson ruled completely. His word was law. He controlled what they ate, what they wore, who they slept with. He used drugs, LSD, amphetamines to weaken their minds. He preached about love and peace, but behind his calm words was a growing darkness. Then, he introduced them to his prophecy. Manson called it Helter Skelter, a race war that, according to him, was about to erupt. He told his followers that black Americans would rise up and overthrow white people. But, according to Manson, they wouldn't know how to rule. They would need a leader, and that leader would be him. It was delusional, absurd, but to his followers it was the truth. And Manson had a plan to speed up this war. He believed that if his family committed brutal, random murders and blamed them on black activists, it would ignite the chaos he predicted. And so, the killing began. On the night of August 8th, 1969, Manson gave the order. He told Charles Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian to go to 1050 Cielo Drive, the home of actress Sharon Tate and director Roman Polanski. Their instructions? Kill everyone inside. Asterisk. But one night of bloodshed wasn't enough. The next night, Manson himself led another group to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, a wealthy couple. This time, he tied them up and let his followers finish the job. Asterisk. The words "Death to Pigs" were written on the walls in blood. For weeks, Los Angeles was gripped by fear. Who could commit such brutal murders? And why? The police had no leads until Susan Atkins, one of the killers, boasted about the murders in jail. Soon, the entire Manson family was arrested, and the world learned the horrifying truth. The trial of Charles Manson was one of the most infamous in history. Manson, always the manipulator, carved an X into his forehead, claiming he was erased from society. His followers did the same. Inside the courtroom, they showed no remorse. They sang Manson songs. They laughed. They were completely under his spell. On January 25th, 1971, Manson and his followers were sentenced to death. But in 1972, California abolished the death penalty. Their sentences were commuted to life in prison. Charles Manson died in 2017, but his legacy remains one of horror. His followers, once young, hopeful people, became killers in his name, and the world learned a terrifying lesson. One man's words can be more dangerous than any weapon. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. If you found this story chilling, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries.